Was Lilo and Stitch Disney's strangest masterpiece? Find out this week on Movies at Grandma's House. Hello. Please come in. There's some fresh cookies in the cookie jar. There's a pitcher of Kool-Aid on the counter. Have a seat. We'll put a movie on for you. This is Movies at Grandma's House, where we look at the movies from the past and see with our modern eyes if they're good and Grandma approves. And I'm your host, Isaac, through Punch Buggy. And who's joining me to consider the 2002 film, Lilo and Stitch?
I'm Ben. They're nuzzling my flesh with their noses.
I'm Ajax. Why don't you sell me and buy a rabbit instead?
And I'm Galga Guy 88. Aliens are all about rules.
All right. Welcome to Grandma's House. We've got a full house tonight. It is great to see everybody. How are we all feeling? Everybody just chime in. How are we doing?
Yeah, good.
Delightful.
Awesome. There is so much hype going around Lilo and Stitch, the new live action remake, but we are going back to 2002 to consider the animated classic. So it's great to have all you guys join in for this week. But before we do, as a reminder, we're getting into spoiler territory. So if you've not seen this film, be forewarned. We're going to be talking about the film in depth. And if you like visiting Grandma's house, if you could do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, show Grandma some love so you'll be up to date with all our new episodes as they drop. So as we mentioned, we're going to be considering this week a classic deemed by many, Lilo and Stitch. And again, the 2002 version, not the new live action. This was released back on June 21st, 2002. It had a budget of $80 million and the box office $173.1 million. And just kind of glance around at the reviews, I see IMDb is about 7.3 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes has a pretty good score of 86%. And Metacritic's about a 74%. So we'll jump into more of what this means even this many years later, especially like I mentioned, the live action is out. So there's a lot of hype kind of centering around it. But let's start first with our first memories. Let's start with Ben first. What are your first memories with this film?
So my first memories is seeing this with my brother growing up. I think my brother was more of a fan of it than I was for a while. I liked it when I first saw it, but I just always think back to seeing that movie with my brother.
Awesome. That's some very good memories. How about you? We'll go to you, Ajax.
I don't remember ever seeing it in the theater the first time. I believe I saw it when it came out on DVD and Blu-ray, and actually bought the because I was collecting all the Disney Blu-rays. So I bought it on Blu-ray and I watched it right after I got it. And then it sat on my shelf. And I never watched it since. I just wanted to have it. You know, it's a Disney movie. It's a classic, so you have to have it so it can be surrounded by your other Disney movies. But no, I loved it. I also remember Elvis, everywhere Elvis, which was all over the trailers and everybody talked about Elvis, but I don't remember it being that saturated in the film itself. And when I rewatched it, it wasn't really like all over the place. It was around it, but not like entirely in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This was, I think a lot of people said that at the time, like, you got to watch this movie. It's got a lot of Elvis references, but we'll get into that more too, about how much of the usage possibly, we'll kind of dive into that. But how about you, Sheldon? What are some first memories you have?
My first memories of Stitch was, I don't know if I'm stepping on your toes for what you're going to talk about later on, but I remember they used to do these ads before it came out where there was Jasmine and Aladdin. And all of a sudden, Stitch flies up in his ship, and he's trying to get Aladdin or Jasmine like go on a date with him or something. And then another one, there was like Lion King, where Rafiki holds up what's supposed to be Simba. It turns out to be Stitch. So I remember those happening. And then I remember seeing it in the theater, and also too, my little sister loved the movie so much, like she watched it constantly whenever we finally got it on DVD, or actually it was VHS, I think back then. I don't remember which one it was, but. Yeah, we were watching that constantly whenever she got it. So, yeah, it's good times, good memories.
That's great. It's exactly my memories, too, is I can recall those teasers. They were kind of like little snippets of him pretty much causing chaos in all these Walt Disney classics. And like, I think Beauty and the Beast, they knock the chandelier down and almost crushes them. Like you said, The Lion King, that's one that was really heavy on the ads. But that was my first memories. I remember watching it and I didn't hate it, but I don't think I was like, oh, I love this film, because I think a lot of people that saw it were just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And I enjoyed it. I remember liking it, but it wasn't like one of my favorites, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my first memories when I think back on when it came out. But thinking about that time, it's been 20 plus years now. Let's go back to Ben. What were your expectations on going back on the rewatch?
I remember liking it a lot as a kid, so rewatching it, I didn't realize how much humor there really is, and more of seeing the character of Lilo and how ornery she is. I totally forgot about that. So going back, I was like, wow, this movie's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. How about you, Ajax?
Yeah, definitely the humor. So when I first saw it, I remember I thought that they relied too heavily on Stitch, the character itself, but not so much everybody else. But when I rewatched it, it was definitely more humor on Lilo's side. So as a, more of an adult, as I've grown up over the years, I noticed that, yeah, Lilo, of course, there's a lot of heart there too, but the comedy really came through more for me on the rewatch of it.
Awesome. And how about you, Sheldon?
For me, I haven't watched this movie in, I don't know, probably at least 10, 15 years. Like, it's just not one I've picked up in a long time. So I watched it right before we got on here immediately. But yeah, I like these both are saying Ben and Ajax is it was very funny in ways that I forgot how funny that it was, and stuff I didn't pick up on before. I now could see, and it just had me laughing so much throughout the whole movie. It was just like cracking me up. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. My expectations, like I said, I remember not enjoying it as much as other people. Again, I'm not going to say I disliked it, but I was just kind of like, okay, this was a fun movie. But people were even saying like it was their favorite Disney movie, period. So that's why I say there's a lot of hype around this. But my expectations were, I'm like a broken record. I want to see what my kids thought of it, because my perspective, almost, I see it from their angle, if that makes sense. So this was one of those movies I was interested to see, going back to it, if my thoughts, I'd catch more stuff, because sometimes you look at movies you find funny, but then you come back to them and someone laughs at something, you kind of pick up on that a little bit more, if that makes sense. So that was kind of my expectations. I was more interested in, what are my kids going to do? What are they going to say? Or would they find it funny? Those types of things. Well, before we get to our plot rewind, let's pause just a moment to hear from our sponsor. Love movies as much as we do? Bring the experience of the big screen to your walls with movieposters.com. Whether you're into classics, blockbusters, or indie gems, they've got something for every film fanatic. As a listener of our podcast, you can get 15% off your order now. Just use code Grandma'sHouse15 at checkout. Head to movieposters.com and let's build your ultimate collection today. All right, so we're going to take it out of the VHS cover. We're going to slide it into the VCR and press play. So on the planet Turo, the United Galactic Federation convicts evil scientist Dr. Jumbo Jukuba of illegal genetic experimentation. He creates Experiment 626, or what later comes to be called Stitch, and crosses paths after escaping from his capture. And crosses paths with a little girl named Lilo, who lost her parents tragically and is now being raised by her older sister. So sit back, get yourself some popcorn, and prepare to laugh at the chaotic fun of a little alien experiment gone wrong named Stitch. So guys, interesting to go back. I have to find, like, when I see this movie after so many years, the first impressions is just, this automatically puts me back into those traditional animated Disney movies. So I was really impressed with the animation, but maybe we'll kind of go back in reverse. Let's start with you, Sheldon. What are your first impressions when you first watched this movie?
Like you were saying, during this time, we had Toy Story that had come out, things like that. We're getting more CGI movies for kids. But for me, this animation was just so cool to go back and see, like, how far they had gone with, the 2D animation while incorporating some of the, 3D animation in there with the ships and explosions and things like that. I remember just in the first little bit, whenever Stitch uses his spit to to shoot at the door, and the guns blow up the door, like just that explosion animation. I was like, man, like this is what I miss about cartoons now, that they don't have this anymore in a lot of the more modern kids shows. So I was really impressed with that part of it. And I enjoyed the whole movie. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too. Like there's a lot of explosions in this movie, but they're really cool. Like when it's that traditional animation, there's something about it just sticks out. But what about you, Ajax? What are some first impressions when you're watching this film?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the traditional animation. I was actually too spoiled with the Pixar coming up, and I kind of got into that way more. And I don't want to see more and more of it. So when I see the traditional animation, I'm kind of taken aback a little bit. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, why did they choose this when the technology's there, when the CGI is better? Why did they go to this? Looking back at it, though, I'm like, okay, well, for 2002, this isn't bad. It's not terrible. I just would have preferred them to go the way of Pixar, So I don't know. I didn't hate it, but I thought it could have been a little bit better. Like they could have introduced a little more animation for that age. I don't know.
That's kind of cool. I've never heard anyone say that. So that is kind of a fresh perspective of that makes sense. Pixar does some amazing animation. So it does kind of spoil you. I could totally see that. But What about you, though, Ben? What are some first impressions as you're watching this film?
Yeah, so kind of to piggyback off Ajax, and I think in some ways Pixar, some of the stuff can age kind of, depending on what they had available then. So in 2002, I think is when the movie came out.
Yeah.
So I personally feel like it aged better the way it is now versus if they had gone Pixar, perhaps. But I don't know. Well, maybe we'll never know. But as a great rewatch, just I had a lot of fun with it. I watched it with my wife, and she did make a funny comment, so I had to mention it.
Yeah.
She said, "Why is all the women's thighs so big?" So I just had to throw that out there.
Coming from a woman, I feel a little better, but it is Hawaii, so I think they're trying to capture that culture. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to say it. I think that's a safe way to say it. That's funny, though.
I'm going to go with that and just leave it at that. But the animation, that's what kind of sticks out to me. I enjoy you guys' takes, though, because, Pixar might have spoiled you at this time. I mentioned the budget was $80 million. It might be a fun fact that I could do for later, but I just want to bring out, despite making it was around 280 at the box office, Disney considered it a failure. So it didn't do as well as they had hoped, probably because Pixar was making gangbusters. They were releasing stuff all over the place and it was just a hit. But going back to it, could be that exactly what you're saying. People got used to that Pixar animation, so they're seeing this traditional animation. One reason I want to touch on that, though, is Ben made a good point, though, of how things age. And Toy Story, I love the animation, but there are some things that really look dated. It's like, ooh, that's still kind of in that CGI. I feel like this is aged like fine wine. It's very just smooth throughout. That's just me. Maybe it's not your kind of touch of animation you like or style, but I feel like it's still at least ages better than your traditional, at least older CGI. But that's interesting. I love the different takes. That's what I'm always looking for, is people's backgrounds. But I think the thing you can really talk about when it comes to this movie is the characters. I mean, there's so many characters. Maybe we'll go back to you, Ben. What are some characters that you enjoy, or what did you think of them overall?
So I have to say my favorite characters, if I'm saying his name right, Pinkley, however you say his name.
Yeah.
Bleakley, that's what it is. Yeah, so his obsession with mosquitoes is just hilarious. And this is kind of a side note. So after this movie came out, they did do a series on television, and it was more of Pinkley's stuff, his shenanigans, and I have to say overall, he's probably one of my favorite characters.
He is really funny. And the mosquito, I thought that was a really funny inside joke. It kind of goes on throughout. But yeah, what about you, Ajax? What's some characters or a favorite character that you have?
Ben totally stole mine. No, I that's, great minds, I completely agree with him. Voiced by the terrific Kevin McDonald of Kids in the Hall. Great voice actor, just tremendous. I loved all the antics that we got to see from that wormy alien assistant guy. Ving Rhames' character, like, talk about perfectly cast. What's his name, by the way?
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names, like Gallagher guy said. What's his name?
Cobra Bubbles.
Cobra
Most
Bubbles.
amazing
Okay.
name. Yes, it's so amazing.
Most amazing name that I completely just like forgot. But no, Ving Rhames. So he's a member of CPS, but also we find out later CIA too. So some great initials there. But no, I think you see Ving, like, if anyone knows what Ving Rhames looks like, this character is embodied by him. Like, you visualize the real life Ving Rhames and his role. And I just think that's perfect for this movie. So that one really had me too, if I had to pick a second.
Yeah. Cobra is probably, I'll say that's probably my favorite. We'll come back to it, but I want to hear from you, Sheldon. What's some, even it can be multiple, but what are some characters that you enjoy? What did you think of the characters?
I really enjoyed the two sisters, Lilo, and now I forget her sister's name because I'm, like I said,
Nani?
Nani, that's her name. Yeah, I like them just because, especially whenever Bubbles is, get into the house, or she's trying to get into the house, things like that. Like, everything's just kind of a mess, and it's like it feels more like a real person. A lot of Disney stuff is like, they're these perfect houses that are all clean, and nothing's ever undone and stuff. To see that and to make them more like a realistic, like how two sisters would live if they did live with each other. And I found it hilarious too because I felt like the background also is reflecting their personalities. If you watch the background, there's this hilarious stuff in the background. Like, there's one part where there's like scissors next to like some like extension cords that are plugged in, like, and there's just like towers, dishes stacked up, stuff like that. So it's like they're trying, but they're not doing very well. They're human. They're human. Like,
Yeah, I appreciated that. They make it more of like regular characters. Normal movies have to have this person with special abilities or something, but they're just, they had this tragic event with their parents, and they're trying to live with each other. They butt heads, and I actually enjoy. There's a lot of funny lines with those characters, but going back to this is Lilo and Stitch. Other than Cobra, like, I would probably say Cobra's my favorite, but the dynamic lives up to the name. I feel like even more so on this rewatch, I felt like there was that connection. I don't know what it was. Maybe I didn't catch it as much years ago, but I really enjoyed it. That was something I saw them just kind of bounce off each other, because it's almost like Stitch is this creature that's made for chaos, just constantly going here, there, everywhere. One of my favorite lines, and we'll get into quotes too, but one of my favorites, literally laughed out loud because I didn't remember it. He gets away from Jumbo, Stitch does, then they're in that car, and Jumbo says, he will be drawn to the cities, back up sewers, and steal everyone's left shoe. Like, he's just this creature that everywhere he goes, he causes chaos. But I love Lilo, like, brings him back. She's that, like, can tolerate his chaos, and they work so well together. The clever idea of she adopts him at a dog pound. I love that premise, that plot. And then, spoilers about the ending. That's how she's able to keep Stitch, is that she shows, I bought him yesterday for $2. I love that. I think the characters really shine here. This was one of the better, dare I say, Disney characters. I mean, not that Disney's had bad characters, but I really, really enjoyed the characters in this one. So, but
Can I talk about that money?
Go for it.
I was going to say, that exchange when you mentioned like how she bought him for $2. I love the very relatable, touching part where Lilo wants to buy him. So Nani's getting ready to give the guy the $2, but she gives it to Lilo. Lilo gives it to the guy. It's so relatable because that is exactly what kids do. They want to buy the stuff. They want to go to the store, and they want to give the cashier the money so they can take it. So just a really relatable part there.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that too. That's what Lilo is so good about, is if you've been around kids, you have kids, all that stuff. She is like that age. It was nailed perfectly. You could tell the writers, the directors, they all had that. So, but yeah, it just kind of opened up. Anything else you guys want to touch on real quick? Maybe go back to you, Ben. What else would you want to bring out about this film?
Yeah, so I know that there's a couple scenes they changed out. One was due to some world events that were going on during the time, but then the other one was in the updated version of Disney, when Lilo in the original, she climbs into the oven, but in
Yeah.
the original, they changed it where it's a table and she's like hiding in a pizza box.
Yeah.
So it makes you think that, maybe they thought, oh, well, since this is becoming more popular down the road, maybe we should change stuff for liability purposes. But yeah, it's just, again, it's a great movie.
Yeah. That's great you brought that out, because I read an article that said they were concerned kids would get into dryers. And that is a really morbid thought of like they hide in the dryer and stuff. And I think other movies have done that, not to go outside, but like Back to the Future, it wasn't a DeLorean, it was a refrigerator. That was the original time machine, was get into it. And they said, no, kids are going to climb into refrigerators and then they'll get locked in, because back then refrigerators, you could only open from the outside. So things like that, great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Like things you don't think about, the studios have to be aware of like, this is a kid's movie. Kids might try to do this. We might want to back this up. So that's a great point though. But how about you, Sheldon? Anything else you wanted to touch on?
There's two different things. So I liked how logical it was with how they acted, but also there was like some really illogical things that happened too. Like the first scene, you come up and there, you see the fish, and then it's just like Lilo, who's, I don't know, how old is she in this movie? Is she like 4, 5? I don't know how old she's supposed to be.
That is a good question. I didn't actually look. I think it was 6 or 7, if I were to guess. But
okay,
somewhere around there.
Either way, she's out in the ocean by herself, like body surfing. And I'm like, and there's like this big wave, and she's just like body surfing on it. And I'm like, doesn't seem like a 5-year-old or whatever it is she would doing. And then too, the everyone says like with Stitch, they'll say, "This is our new dog," and they're like, "Oh, it's a dog!" Like, and then after that, no one questions it. Like every time that it's brought up, it's just like, doesn't look like a dog, and it's like, oh well, and then they just keep moving on with the scene. Like no one like stops. Is like, I think we need to examine this a little further. Even the woman that they get the dog from, they're like, they don't question anything. They're just kind of like, oh, I don't think it's a dog. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, here you go. We'll just make believe it's a dog.
It's like every movie with aliens does that. Like E.T., all the alien movies do that. Home, there's all of them.
That's true.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up was the scene where Nani is singing in the hammock to Lilo, and that it's just like a powerful moment, I think, in the movie itself. And I feel like a lot of movies like nowadays, it's at least for me, maybe I don't watch that many kids stuff, so it could be me, but I feel like that's just like something powerful and just something that we don't get very much anymore. I don't know. And I just don't feel like we get like that feeling anymore in movies as far as kids movies go. It just was like something that was simple, but like just made the impact of their relationship like astounding just for having that. That's something, just a couple of things that I appreciated about the movie.
Great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Is a great scene, and I'm 100%. Like, I wish movies would do that. It feels like it's always in a rush. You don't slow down, because that was kind of that scene of slowing down and kind of showing that emotion with that family. They're going through a lot. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I think this is one that I'll touch on it when we get to our reviews, but I feel like there's so many funny quotes I missed the first time, and that's surprising to me. Like I love quotes. I usually pay notice, but there's so many as I go back through and think about. I love where Cobra does, he introduces himself to Lilo, and she's like, "You got Cobra on your fingers," and he just does this like little gesture, and it cracks his knuckles. As much as that's just a little subtle like thing, and he's just that angry. I love where they're at the restaurant, and I think his name is Dave, the guy that's kind of interested in Nani. Lilo's like, "Don't worry, I know she likes you. I read her diary. She likes your butt and thinks you have fancy hair." And he's like, "She thinks my hair's fancy?" I don't know why I didn't catch those before. Oh, and then like later she's like, "You smell like gasoline," because he blew up. I love that too. Like there's so many great lines. Was there any quotes you guys like maybe throw that in just in the mix? I think that's one of the strong points of the film.
Yeah. So when Nani doesn't know that Cobra is standing over him or over her, right? Yeah. And
yeah.
she is like in an altercation kind of with Lilo, trying to get her to settle down and behave. And Lilo says, yeah, she disciplines me real good 5 days a week with bricks in a pillowcase. I'm like, what? What? Wait, what? Wait a second. Bricks in a pillowcase. Hello. All right. That was hilarious. And then, like the Stitchzilla scene, and Stitch's Godzilla in a little makeshift San Francisco. And she said, "No more caffeine for you." That's just a cutesy little thing, but I love it.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that out. That's one of my favorites too. How about you, Ben? What are some quotes that you like?
It's the scene when Cobra Bubbles comes up for the first time, and Lilo had the bad encounter with her friends, and she's putting them in a pickle jar, and he's just like looking at her, and she's like, "My friends have to be punished." That's all she says. But yeah, that scene just cracked me up.
I love that one too. How about you, Sheldon?
I want to stay around the same area. That must have been a very quotable area. But whenever Bubbles is first walking up and Nani's in the doggy door and she's saying this to Lilo, "I want to put you in whenever we get in there, I'm going to put you in the blender. I want to bake you into a pie. I'm going to feed him to the CPS guy. And whenever he asks what's in there, I'll tell him what's made with." And then she pulls her out. And she goes, "With love." I'm like, that is hilarious. That is so. If you have kids, there's moments where you're just like, but it sounds a lot worse than what you're actually meaning. So I thought that was hilarious.
Yes. I think that's a great point. If you are a parent, you kind of pick up on those quotes. And maybe that's why going back and watching it, I appreciate some more of those quotes. Because that exact one that you're talking about, that hit more home than ever. I mean,
it's very realistic. Well, and it's also a timing thing because it's always at the absolute worst time. Like someone's always right behind you. Someone's always standing right there, and you're like, of course they are. Like, of course they're watching me yell at this kid. They think I'm like a horrible, horrible father or something. It's like, if they only knew. If they only knew.
Yeah. You had 10 steps of being sweet and gentle and just, come on, but, let's do this. And they're not having it. And it's just, you snap. It happens. We're imperfect, but I love that. We can't forget, of course, it's not more on the funny side, but it's the famous Ohana means family. That's kind of the theme of this, of Stitch is out of place. He realizes maybe, obviously, destruction is not a good thing when he's programmed for it. So he overcomes that. That's just something that's famous with this movie, but it's a really powerful quote. I mean, we have to at least touch on that, but I thought it was really cool. It's kind of comes full circle, obviously, with the plot and the whole film as it comes together. Well, we have to make mention, Seth wasn't with us this week, so we're going to give a big shout out to Seth. He just had some things going on, but he will return soon. So I'm sure there's people like, "Where's Seth? I miss him." But in spite of that not being with us, I still have some fun facts. So I hope I don't screw these up. Keep that in mind. He'll be back soon enough. He'll be able to come back to those fun facts that you're used to. But here's some fun facts for you guys. Get your thoughts on them. The first one I have is this film was nominated for an Oscar for Best Animated Picture, but it lost to Spirited Away. So it was nominated. So what do you guys think of that?
Bogus.
Boo.
Definitely should have beaten
I never liked Spirited Away. Yeah. I never liked Spirited Away. So, how is it a flop? They're saying it's a flop, and they got an Oscar nomination out of it. Come on, Disney.
Right.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, it's just Disney. Again, it goes perception. For our perception, it on paper looks like it at least made a plus. It was a profit, but I think Disney has certain films way up on the expectations, and yeah, I would think an Oscar would mean this did really well, but unfortunately, they didn't view it that way. So that was the first one I have. You guys might have known this already, but one of the directors, Chris Sanders, he is the voice of Stitch and reprised that role for the now live action as well. Same guy, Chris Sanders. So
yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
Found that out recently.
So pretty
I'm
cool
glad they decided not to go with someone else.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Absolutely. So the original concept was going to take place in rural Kansas because it would be away from cities and away from the chaos. But they decided to go with the Hawaii theme. It kind of stick better. What would you guys think of it being in Kansas? Like, what would that film be like?
That would be bad.
I think it would be too much like Superman. Superman flying, crash landing. Who knows?
It would be
That's
be
true.
too boring. Kansas just screams boring to me. No offense, Kansas. You have tornadoes, that's cool and everything, but you got the Wizard of Oz. You don't need Lilo and Stitch and the Wizard of Oz. So no, Hawaii is just more of an exciting setting anyway, and you put aliens in Hawaii, it just sounds better, I think it's cool
Yes.
where they went.
Well, I do have to say, the famous, the big scene in the movie is the Hawaiian roller coaster ride to go into the waves. So in Kansas, I don't know if they do a lot of like ATV riding. So would they do like an ATV song?
That's true. Instead of surfing,
Yeah.
they'd be ATV riding. Oh boy. Yeah, that would have been really different. So I got a trivia question to go along with the fun facts. That's what we like to do. Seth does a great job. So here we go, guys. Are you ready for the fun facts trivia question?
I'm ready.
Do it.
Oh, all right. So which character was originally going to be killed in this movie? Was it A, Cobra Bubbles, B, Jumba, Dr. Jumba, I actually forget it. It's Jukata, I think his last name. C, the snow cone guy, or D, Pudge the fish. Maybe we'll start. We'll go with Sheldon first. What would you think? A, B, C, or D?
I think Pudge the fish, because that'd be like detrimental to Lilo and our weather system. But
That's true. What about
Yeah.
you? What about you, Ajax? What do you think?
This is really different. I'm gonna guess Cobra, and I feel if that is the answer, they just determined that was too strong of a character to have go away.
That would be pretty dark. How about you, Ben?
I'm going to say the snow cone guy just because he was in those scenes that often he wasn't a main character, but his antics. So I would say probably him.
It's sad that like they're going by on the airplane. You wonder, like, there's times where he is kind of close to the danger that could happen. So I could see a reason, but I like the variety. All three of you guys picked different answers. The answer is D, Pudge the fish. So Sheldon was correct.
Nice job.
They originally were going to kill off Pudge the fish, and from what I was seeing, it was too dark because Lilo introduces Stitch to Pudge the fish, and just use your imagination what happens after that. So I'm thinking that would have been a little dark. Yeah, I mean, because she builds that up at the beginning of feeding it a sandwich and her family, tradition and all that. So now though, that was a possible part in the film. I'm kind of glad they cut it. That's just me. But that's
the
it.
only way I could see it making sense is whenever Stitch gets caught underneath water and maybe frantically going and accidentally gets Pudge. That would be so dark and, kind of thing. It's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have worked, but it does seem kind of dark, I would say. So,
Yeah.
Well, that is the fun facts for now. So what we like to do is kind of look around the net, just kind of see what kind of reviews are out there. So briefly look at what kind of reviews are there. To start out, this is coming from, of course, I'm not getting the names as well. This is from Nightwind, and they spelled it very differently. It says, friends don't let friends see Lilo and Stitch. 1 out of 10. What do you guys think of that?
Disagree.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that.
They didn't watch the right movie?
Yeah, it's
Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
they
He
just
really wanted to see it in Kansas. That's why.
they just I guess didn't like from what I was reading because we just give it like a kind of a glimpse of the review, but they give really long ones. It was saying they just didn't get the Stitch character, and I think I understand that. Maybe if that's not your cup of tea, you're not going to like it. But still, I don't.
But a one. Yeah, some people just don't like fun.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. I don't
I
agree
think he
with
just watches Westerns. That's why.
it. Maybe Hawaii is too different from a Western, so that makes sense. That could be. So, second one I have. This is from Edna Krabapli, if I'm saying that correctly. They say this is Disney at its best. Honestly, 10 out of 10. So, what do you think of that? Going from one extreme to the other.
Yeah. I don't disagree as much. Still disagree, but not as much as the first one.
Yeah, they giving a little bit of the extreme. But here's the last review we have. This is coming from Ginny Ho. She says, refreshingly different, from the usual Disney fare, 7 out of 10. So a little bit in the middle there. What do you guys think?
I have to imagine
that
that's a
seems fair.
Hawaiian name too. So speaking, of the culture, and I believe that 7 out of 10 is a very fair review. I think that's more like it. Yes.
Yeah, I probably agree with that one the most. As much as, you might have your own takes. Those were the kind of extreme and in the middle. Mix it up a little bit. Seth does a really good job with finding those reviews. He has a good balance. I went from one extreme to the other, what I saw there. So, all right. Well, let's get down to it. So we've kind of seen reviews that are out there, but let's get down to ours. So you guys are our guests. I'm going to let you guys go first. We'll go one at a time here, but I have to ask the question. So maybe we'll start with Sheldon first. When it comes to the movie Lilo and Stitch, the 2002 animated classic by some, are you going to take it home? Are you going to leave it at grandma's? Or are you going to hide it in the attic?
After watching this again just now, think that I would probably leave it at grandma's house. I still think it's a movie that I like. I don't mind watching, but it's not one that I'm like, like I said, it's been like 10 or 15 years since I've seen the movie. So obviously it's not one of my top tier ones that I'd watch all the time. Nothing wrong with it. I think it's a good movie. It did spin off, let me see, there's Stitch the movie, the TV series, Lilo and Stitch 2, and Leroy and Stitch. So there's actually 5 movies now with the live action based off of this flop that Disney had. So it's
Wow.
honestly, it's got to be pretty good. It's got to be pretty good to keep them to keep bringing it out. So I think leaving it at grandma's house is where I would stay.
Right. Yeah, maybe they didn't consider it a flop. Maybe it was just they didn't think very highly of it. It has to be a hit because it was positive. It wasn't like a box office bomb, but considering they made the sequels, they might have had a change of thought. So maybe at the time it was a disappointment.
Yeah.
But let's go to Ben next. How are you going to rate it, Ben?
So before I have to rate it, I have to present my fun fact real quick. The director presented the story of Lilo and Stitch to the studio, and they told him you could only do it if you were to draw everything. So the actual person who did the voice of Stitch also drew everything.
Drew everything. Like
Wow.
he did all the
Cool.
character designs
Yeah.
and stuff. Okay. It's really cool.
So I am going to take it home. This is one I will watch pretty often when I get a chance, just because it's a great movie and it's got its funny parts and the heart-wrenching parts where they're singing the song and you don't know if they're going to be together, Nani and Lilo. But I'm going to take it home.
All right. Awesome. And we'll come to you, Ajax. How are you going to rate it?
Well, before I give my review or my rating, I'm going to go ahead and give a could be a fun fact, and that is the area code of Hawaii is 808, which means nothing, but the area code of good chunk of LA County is an area code that you might be familiar with when watching the movie Lilo and Stitch, and that is 626. Experiment 626. I don't think that's a coincidence, but I didn't look it up either. As far as a review, when I think take it home, I think a movie I want to watch it now. Like I have to see it now. The original Lilo and Stitch animated 2002, not one that I have to see, but if I could travel to grandma's house to see it at my leisure and she happens to have it around, maybe then. So I'm going to leave it at grandma's.
Right. That's a solid rating. We always tell ones that's not a bad rating because it's movies at grandma's house. It's movies you want to watch there. Maybe, again, it's in grandma's collection, so it's towards the back of that collection, but you might have those ones that you are looking forward to watch. So that's a solid rating there. So I go back to when I first saw this years ago. I would probably say this was a leave it at grandma's house because I didn't hate it. I'm just like you, Ajax and Sheldon. I enjoy it, but I was like, is it a movie I'm going to get out all the time? I will admit, though, going back and watching this with my kids, I didn't really bring out their thoughts as much. I do a horrible job with that. That's something I'll do better. They love this movie. Like, they laugh so hard at Stitch antics, just causing chaos. The funny moments between him and Lilo and her lines, they'll even laugh at that. And I think just getting older, just seeing that dynamic of her sister and Lilo, that family unit, I think when you get older, you appreciate it. So it's a me thing, but I'm actually going to take this home because I really enjoyed going back and watching it with my kids. I think it's not one, I go with you, Ajax. When I think of Take It Home, it's one I'm like, I want to watch it again right now. And I certainly feel that way, but maybe it's not like one of the tops, but I would be like, yeah, let's put this on again. I think it's a lot of fun if you have kids, if you have ones that get the humor. It's, to me, more about that experience, having a fun time watching this with them. But it's a solid movie. I think it's one of those, now it's finally getting that recognition, because at the time, it was very underrated. You didn't hear much about this movie compared to other Disney movies. So nowadays, I think it's going to finally get that respect, especially with the live action. Maybe people go back and compare it, but that's how I would look at it. Definitely grab the kids, grab grandma, grab everybody, just have a good time. Sit down and get the popcorn ready. So with that, we also have to acknowledge grandma has her rating as well. So when it comes to Granny's family-friendly rating, it is going to be a B. And that's still family-friendly. Just get a little bit of caution. There's kind of like what you mentioned, Ajax, the bricks in a bag and smashing. There might be some crude humor in there of just very mean and stuff. And there's a lot of explosions. There's a lot of intense scenes.
Some peril.
That sort of thing. Yeah, peril.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfectly said. So that type of thing, but it's still family friendly through and through. Your kids are going to enjoy it. Grandma probably is going to enjoy it for the most part. I don't think she's going to be too offended by anything contained in there. So there it is, guys. We did it. We've considered the 2002 Lilo and Stitch. Thank you guys so much for joining for this week. And again, Seth will be back soon. He sends his regards.
Yay.
But before we wrap things up, let's make sure we kind of get a call out to everybody. Let's start with you, Ben. Where can people find and connect with you, or any projects you got going on?
Yeah, so I'm on the podcast with Isaac, Mustaches and Coffee on YouTube. And then I have my own channel. It's Toy Box Gamer. Yes. And it's Toy Box Gamer on YouTube, one word. And I review 90s toys, have a more of a history lesson. It's all comical. And you can also follow me on Twitter at toybox_gamer.
Right on. Yeah, be sure to check out Ben on all those different links there. How about you, Ajax?
All right. If you like really stupid content, you can go and watch my TikToks on broken_spatulas. Broken_spatulas. And on there I do They Might Be Giants dramatic readings, as well as dog walking dad jokes. If any of that, interests you, you can see that. Otherwise, I'm on socials under Ajax2727. And on Spotify, I do a weekly curated playlist under Ajax. You just go to the profiles and type in Ajax. You'll find me on there somewhere.
Good deal. Yeah, be sure to check him out. If you like that kind of humor, I think you're gonna hit a lot of funny bones checking him out for sure. And we'll come to you, Sheldon. Where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube at GalgaGuy88, as well as on TikTok underneath GalgaGuy88. And I do mostly gaming arcade content, as well as I do a show every Friday night at 10:30. It's a little bit later, but gaming happy hour is what we do. And we just talk about gaming throughout the week, what's been going on. And so you can find me over there, and I hope to see you.
There you go. And again, we'll do a little callback. We were able to be in Sheldon's arcade in the Galgacade. That's where we did Tron. So if you haven't seen our episode on that, go back and watch that. And also check out GalgaGuy88, his YouTube. If you're like, this is amazing, he goes into more depth. It's awesome. Great videos on there of different finds as well. You found a few good ones here recently, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. Sketchies too, picking them up sometimes. But, you get a good deal, it's worth it.
That's it. So if you like that kind of, definitely check Sheldon out there. And for Movies at Grandma's House, you want to connect with us. We are on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're obviously on YouTube here. We're also on Patreon, so check us out there. We also have a newsletter, and that is how you're going to be entered into our monthly giveaway. It's a poster of your choice. We do that every month, courtesy of movieposters.com. So go check them out too. They are awesome. We've been working with them for a few months, and they're just great people. So if you are in the market for posters, regardless, go check them out. Go browse them. The link will be in the description. But be sure you're on the newsletter, because all you got to do is sign up. You're automatically entered every single month. It's that easy. So that's going to do it for our time at Grandma's house. But don't worry, we will be back soon. So in the meantime, remember to be kind and rewind. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.